Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Consumed by Grace podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Pastor Henry.
And I'm Pastor Brooke, and we are so glad to have you with us again for a new episode all about the United Methodist Church social principles.
Social principles. And as we've been doing with this series, we've been bringing on some of our friends to help us talk about this. And today we have our dear friend, Reverend Marion Royston. Marion, just tell us a little bit about where you're serving and a little about you.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I am Marion Royston, and I serve at St. Paul in Birmingham. It's a historic church downtown in the Civil Rights District. You should come visit us.
Yes.
You all have, actually. Mm-hmm. So thanks. And I'm also one of the conference cultivators through the Office of New and Renewing Churches. So I get to work with people as they re-envision things for themselves, but also envision new ministries and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's a fun job.
Yes, very fun. You get to see all the people.
I do. I get to just travel around, and nobody knows where I am at any time, and they can just assume that I'm doing one of the two jobs that I have.
There you go.
They just know you want to be where the people are.
I do.
You do.
I do.
Yes. You like Disney? Because we do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Arab UMC friends, you may remember Marion. She's one of the leaders who helped us put together the worship night.
Yep.
Not too long after I came to this church.
Yep.
So that's just a fun little bit of history. Today we are on, this is our fourth episode, talking about the third social principle, appropriately enough, the social community. We had to get just a little bit social in this, and that section starts us off with a couple of great John Wesley quotes. I'm going to start with the first one for us today. When it comes to faith, what a living, creative, active, powerful thing it is. I cannot do other than good at all times. It never waits to ask whether there is some good which is to be done. Rather, before the question is raised, it has done the deed and keeps on doing it. One who is not active in this way is a person without faith. That was John Wesley in his preface to his explanatory notes on Romans. And I love that because it talks about, and what this whole social principle is about, is how are we good people to the people around us, which should be a huge part of who we are as Christians, and yet that's not always as easy as a thing to figure out as we would like to think it is.
Sure. I like to say we as humans love to make things hard, right?
Yeah, we do.
We
overcomplicate
all the things, and really this is all about just just being a good human and how we do that.
It's almost like you want to ask, why'd you have to go and make things so complicated?
Gosh.
I love a good Avril.
I think this might be just song reference number 1 of this. Yeah.
I'm so glad Marion is here today.
I know how this works.
Yes.
Such fun. The second John Wesley quote in the preface to his hymns and sacred poems is, "The gospel of Christ knows no religion but social, no holiness but social holiness." We believe as United Methodists, in our duty as Christians, it is important for us to be active and engaged in our world. It is not our job just to cloister ourselves off in somewhere where we can pray and then we're holy because we're away from everything else. That's not how this works.
Yeah, I love that quote. You can't be so heavenly minded that you're of no earthly good.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what this feels like.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and we're actually in the middle of a Methodism 101 class here in our church, and so we just got done talking about social holiness and how do we live what we believe. How do we live that out into the world? And so, very cool.
Yeah. And it's an important thing. It goes on to say that the church is called to be a distinctive community marked by preaching of the gospel, studying of the scripture, breaking of bread, and witnessing to the power of redemption in the midst of a broken world. And I love how that presents that. If we are to be witnesses to the power of redemption, like, how are we going to do that? That makes me think of, did Jesus just start preaching and then everybody's like, oh, well, this is a person that started? No. He started doing things. He did miracles. He healed, and that went along with his teaching, which, doing those things, when he fed people, when he healed people, that's what gave him the right and earned him the hearing for people to then engage with his message. And it's not that different for us today.
Yeah.
People want to see what you do and how you live and how does that affect their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, and you can't really witness to the power of redemption in a broken world if you're not participating in the work of redemption in a broken world. So That's kind of our call as Methodists to do that.
Yeah.
And people of God in general.
Yeah.
And so what you do as you read through this particular principle is it talks about a plethora of issues. It touches on everything from abortion to euthanasia to suicide to gender equality as it pertains to sexual harassment and sexual assault. We talk about pornography, gambling. Talks about a lot of different things. And what I find so interesting, and this really kind of harkens back to the preamble and the preface to this, is a lot of these things we're going to have very different ideas on how to accomplish this. And in some cases, this is going to put a stance out that you may agree or disagree with. But what I think, again, is hope is, whether you agree or disagree, it's calling you to engage somehow.
Right.
Do something with these, because these are all important issues that we should have a care about making them better in the world.
And we talked about in our introductory episode to this series that we're called to have conversations around these things, and not only to have conversations, but to engage in that dialogue when we do maybe disagree on how we feel about those issues. And so I love that you said that, because just to remind us that we're not called to agree on every single thing, right? But we are called to engage in that dialogue and to have conversations around, because here's the truth of that is, if I hear somebody explain something in a different light than what maybe I have experienced that in, that might change the way that it might change my heart, right? The way that I feel about something, or the ways that I can engage or be active in caring about something. And so I appreciate that too.
Yeah. And I think that what I love about all of these in this particular section is that it kind of reminds us that there's flesh and blood attached to the things that we care about. So we can't really live all of our lofty religious aspirations in a vacuum. We have to be in the real world, and the real world has all this stuff that's really hard to sometimes to talk about with other people.
Yeah.
Especially as Southerners.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're so
absolutely.
polite.
We're so polite, and we would rather just hide behind "bless your heart," which, if you don't live in the South or have not lived in the South and have not become familiar with the phrase "bless your heart," go search "bless your heart." It's
There's
a Southern
42
thing.
definitions.
It's one of my favorite terms to throw out.
Because bless your heart can mean, I'm concerned for you. Bless your heart can mean, oh, honey.
Oh.
Bless your heart can mean, you are the single dumbest human being I have ever met. How did you even get out of bed this? It is such a versatile phrase.
It is. But we carry that dear to our hearts to be able to use that freely and willingly and in all things.
In that wonderful hymn, Freely, Freely, I don't think that was the freely give they were talking about.
Really?
Maybe that's just right. No, we were talking about one issue in particular that's addressed in here, alcohol, and how we deal with that as Christians, because people have very different thoughts on that. Some people, alcohol's nothing to be concerned about at all. Alcohol is something that you can have, but it's something to be used in moderation. Alcohol is fine for other people. It's not for me. Alcohol is for nobody, nowhere, at any time. And Marion had a good thought about that I think ties into this whole thing.
I mean, I'm a person, I would say I don't not drink, but I also have acid reflux, number one. So, I mean, that changes the game. But also, so, I mean, it's not even a moral issue at that point. It's practical. And however, but in situations, we have to read the room.
Yeah.
If you're in a dinner party full of people who are in recovery, I don't think it's appropriate to ask for wine, because that's not supporting where they are in life. I mean, sure, their recovery might be strong enough to withstand it, but that's not fair.
Yeah.
That's not very kind in our part. And it also might show that we have an unhealthy dependence if we can't say no at that time. But if we're in a group of people who kind of have some similar ideals about that, then maybe. If we're mentoring somebody who came from a home with abuse and alcohol, maybe not.
Yeah.
So I think we have to think about we have to consider.
Yeah.
And if we consider and we realize that we can't say no, then
That's a thing for us to handle. On our own.
Yeah.
For ourselves.
I talk to God about that.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So, and I say that, because whether or not that's an issue for you or not, whether or not you have a problem or not, that's not the point. The point is putting yourself in someone else's shoes, displaying a little bit of empathy for their situation, whatever it is. Whether or not you choose to drink or not, it can't be more about than just you.
Yeah.
Sure. And I think contextually it changes based on our situation and our social location. I mean, the Welch's grape juice man was a Methodist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Methodists were very strong on the temperance stance because of how overindulgence in alcohol was harming families, and specifically women and children, because they were being abused and also not getting their basic needs met because the primary breadwinners were spending too much on alcohol.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, that was a strong social stance to stand against it. But as context changes, our faithfulness might change, and the way that we stand for things might change over time. So I think we have to be okay with changing it too.
Yeah.
And context is so important. It actually leads back to one of my favorite little Wesley factoids. Wesley was very much against spirits and had somewhat of a problem with beer, but not wine. And people, it's a well thing. It's a status thing. At that time, people didn't really eat grapes.
Oh.
So it wasn't for him. He was against the overindulgence, but he was also against, in that time, it being used for that as opposed to food.
Interesting.
And wine didn't fit in that category. I always just thought that was an interesting little tidbit
fun
there.
Fact.
That also kind of shows his mindset on things, because he had a practicality about you're taking this wheat and barley and turning it into this stinky beverage. This is my opinion now.
Yes.
Stinky beverage.
Stinky beverage.
With gluten in it. There I am. But I mean, instead of feeding people when everybody's not being fed, I mean, it sounds like he had that higher human perspective that he was always kind of going back to.
Yeah.
That might be the point.
Yeah, for sure.
Very much so. And I love some of the ways it puts on things. And again, this is trying to put flesh, as Marion said earlier, on real issues. One of the ones that it talked about, and I just love the opening sentence of this paragraph. It was talking about suicide, because suicide is something that affects all of our lives in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And it starts with, we believe that suicide does not bar people from God's grace, which is all sufficient. I love that. I before reading this, I'd never really thought about suicide in that way. That was a big eye-opener for me at the time. We urge pastors and local congregations to establish appropriate protocols in responding to people considering suicide and the survivors of suicide attempts. Such protocols should include referrals to experienced counselors and medical professionals. Then here's the thing. Rather than ostracizing or condemning survivors or family members affected by suicide, we urge pastors and congregations to provide compassion and support to these people. Again, we're taking this issue about, suicide is wrong. I dare say there's probably not a single person, here that's going to be listening to this that grew up thinking suicide's okay. There's not many people in this world who think that's okay. But how do we take it from this head issue and then start looking at the people and the families who've been affected by it? That should change how we deal with people.
Yeah.
And how we approach helping folks. And again, that's what this should be a conversation starter. How do we as a church want to address something like this?
Yeah, and it also has that undercurrent of do no harm in it, because it's like, pastors, you should probably refer if you don't know how to do it. If you don't, you should have at the ready a list of people to send people to when this becomes beyond your role and scope as a church. But also, it does so much harm when we heap shame on people who are already grieving, and also on people who might be on the fringes and on the edge and just looking for some hope. And so if we want to do no harm, we have to think about the most compassionate and life-giving response in the face of a tragedy.
Yeah. I think the reason it's so hard sometimes is because it can be quite overwhelming for everyone involved in these situations. And so sometimes we get a little panicky and don't know, even if we've been trained or taught what to say or do or how to respond, this is not something that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, right? And so just as a congregation or as pastors or anybody for that matter. And so, I think that's why we have to be really responsible in the way that we do care for people. Because, like Marian said, like, it's not the kind and compassionate response to put shame or guilt or extra burden on someone who's already dealing with so much, right? And so, I think we have to be responsible in knowing what is our next step.
Yeah.
Yes, have that list of referrals to give them. Have that one person that even you can go and talk to be able to say, hey, I need help in this. To be able to ask for that help is such a gift. And so, I think we have to be really diligent in the way that we do that.
We do. It reminds me of my favorite positive and then negative example of how to deal with someone who's going through a tragedy. And it comes from the book of Job. Because,
just thinking about Job.
When all of that happened to Job, for the first week after his friends got there, Job lost his wealth, his family, his health. He's sitting there, put on, basically a burlap sack, and he's sitting in the ashes, and he's scratching himself with a broken pot. And his friends seeing this, they do the same thing. They go and they sit with him, and they don't say a word. And they did great. Right until they open their mouths. And that, it reminds me, we're hitting some of the you heard these things growing up, but it's really true. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And if you don't know what to say, then just don't.
Or say that.
I don't know what to say.
Ministry of presence can be so much. B, sometimes, especially when it comes to these issues, and we only know a limited about, or we don't know any of the details, sometimes the best thing we can do is listen to someone else and then take a minute for our own response, rather than, well, hey, here's something, I need to go fix it, I need to go solve it. Well, do you have enough information to do that?
We like to fix our own discomfort at somebody else's pain by saying something, and generally we say really silly things.
Yes.
Things that are not helpful.
Not helpful at all.
And as there are so many things. Again, I think awareness is such a key thing, and that I can say this. It's really, I'm really thankful, to have y'all on here, because y'all have to deal with things that, as a white male, I just don't. One of the most important things I think it talks about it here is we support both gender equality and gender diversity as important goals for ensuring the aspirations of women and girls are taken seriously and guaranteeing that paid positions and leadership opportunities are distributed equally for all. We decry the persistence of sexism and misogyny in the church through its practices and theological teachings, as well as the broader society. This is something that we like to think, oh, it's 2025. We beat this stuff years ago, right? We have not. We have not. I know y'all have stories that, like, were just never even remotely on my radar. Of the challenges y'all face to get to this point in your lives and ministry.
What's funny is that when you said, oh yeah, you've faced things that I haven't. I've faced things, and I'm sure, Brooke, you have too, that I never expected to, even as a woman. Even as a woman of color, I'm like, you still got me today. That's weird.
Well, and, I have this personal thing about me where I don't want it to bother me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want it to bother me that someone doesn't treat me the same as a male counterpart. But it does.
Yeah.
And That's something that I even struggle with. Even, not the fact that we're not treated equal, but the fact that it bothers me, that because I don't want it to bother me. So, women, we could stay here all day and talk about all the things. And we won't do that. But yeah, I'll tell you something that I'm thankful for, though, to sort of flip this on its head. I'm thankful for the men who are in our lives.
Yeah.
Pastor Henry is one of those people who can see and can acknowledge and say, you know what? He says it all the time. He's like, I don't know what you're dealing with, but I am here to stand in the gap for someone who maybe isn't. And so that's something that I appreciate, that they even put in the last sentence that says, we regret that such prejudices have too often led to the denigration and the dismissal of women's leadership and participation. The only way we change that is to have men stand in the gap.
And I'm so thankful for those men too. So thankful.
So, I think we, again, it just goes back to the heart of the social principles in general, is to just put yourself in the shoes of someone else. Have some empathy for things that maybe you don't deal with, but you know that your neighbors are, and it's all about caring for our neighbors, for sure. And
I think one of the things, especially as you're trying to build relationships, build a bridge, whether it's someone of a different gender, race, sexuality, creed, whatever that is, it's just because you didn't experience it does not make someone else's experience something illegitimate. Keep that in mind. Like, take them at their face value. I think so much can be gained when you're like, wow, I never realized that would be something someone would have to go through. That's all you have to say. You're not saying whether you agree, disagree. You're not. It's just listen and. They're trying to share.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and we were talking about a lady who wanted to run in the Boston Marathon, and at that time women were not allowed to run in that marathon race. And so we were having some dialogue about what she experienced, and somebody said, can you just imagine what they're going through, or what that person was going through? And I said, well, kind of. Because it hasn't changed that much over time, This is something that is still very real and very present in a lot of areas in our lives. And so, you have to continue to be aware that these things are still happening. It's not over just because we say we want it to be.
Yeah, and we have to keep teaching the church and teaching people generation after generation how to identify it, because it's like, go with me here. It's like this crafty little supervillain that just keeps on putting on a different hat or a fake mustache or maybe some sunglasses or something, but it's the same thing, and it just needs to be completely unmasked and set aside, because it really is it's a shame to the body of Christ.
It is. It is. If you look throughout Scripture, there's example after example after example of women who've been held up in leadership in different points of view. Yes, there are other passages in there that talk about, hey, in this particular situation, I do this or this. But, it's funny how we can get really good and contextual about some things, and then, well, no, but this is an all-time statement, and we'll ignore all of the other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's once again a read the room. Listen, in this society, it might be good to cover your head so you don't look like a crazy outlier.
Yeah.
Yes, you have freedom in Christ, but come on now.
Yeah.
That's, and so when we think about things in those contexts of like, these were some of the things that people beat up on Paul about. These were probably Paul's social principles at the time for that moment.
Yeah.
Of how to be faithful in that community.
So for instance, if you went to...
Not to get into that.
No, yeah. Well, like, for instance, if we go... Because I've been fortunate able to do this a couple times. Go to Israel. There are places when I go in, I have to cover my head as a male.
Yeah.
Like, you go to the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall... They ask you to cover your head. Like that is a societal norm, and that's showing respect to that. Again, that's not putting a judgment on that culture. That's just what that culture is. That doesn't make that our culture.
Right.
Yeah.
And so learning, hey, as we read through this, as we read through these, what's culturally relevant to us, what is not. We talked briefly. We are a global church, and so these social principles reflect a global reality. There are several sections in here about polygamy. Not as big of an issue for us here in
Alabama,
US.
in this part of Alabama. Anyway.
In this part of Alabama, there are other nations around the world where that is something that is very significant. Euthanasia. That's a more significant issue here than it is in some other areas of the world. So what's your context? And if you're talking to somebody from another context, it probably behooves you to listen to them and get their opinion and listen to some of their knowledge before we just come in and say, well, oh yeah, I got this.
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes back to like being grounded in our faith. Covering our head for the sake of being in a culture that is not our own shouldn't rock our faith so much that we have issue with that. I think which just being grounded in our faith sort of is at the root of all of these can I live in a context that maybe doesn't match my everyday norm but also carry my faith with me.
And can I have enough humility in that situation to go in and know that my way is not the way, especially on things that are indifferent kind of, because some things are just kind of a thing indifferent at the end of the day, and so it's like, just do the thing. It'll be okay. I've had the opportunity to visit with the Methodist Church of the Caribbean and the Americas, and also go to Africa University last year, and in both cases we were told, when we go into these certain places, it might be good to like wear a dress or wear something that covers your arm or whatever, just because we don't want to insult the people that we're spending time with, even though we are in the Methodist family together. Especially African University is a United Methodist institution, but it's a different country and a different continent and all those kinds of things. So it's better to err on the side of caution. And that's a courtesy to our neighbors.
It continues on, another paragraph. We condemned racism, ethnocentrism, tribalism, and any other ideology or social practice based on false and misleading beliefs or ideologies that one group of human beings is superior to all other groups of human beings. Additionally, we utterly reject laws, policies, and social practices that marginalize, discriminate, and or encourage the use of violence against individuals, communities, or other social groups based on perceived racial, ethnic, or tribal differences. And this is pretty broad, and so there are some of these things that you look at, it's like, oh yeah, it's really easy to spot those. And then some of those things, again, someone who grew up in my part of Alabama, as in the majority, there are things I just didn't see. And so hearing someone else's experience, even hearing, because I went to a school that I think was 70-30, 65-35. We had a decently mixed population, so there were some things, but that could be very different experience than someone who even lived in South Alabama, where the demographic looks very different, and there's a very different historical way which the state has approached laws and social services and whatnot. Listen to people and their experiences.
Oh, yeah. And I think about this whole tribalism thing, and I'm like, yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down here, social principles. And then I think about the one tribe that I cannot let go of, and it's like a terrible tribe. But, I'm like, but as an Auburn Tiger, I believe that my tribe does have some superiority in this state in certain ways. Maybe not football, but...
And by maybe not, you mean in no situation whatsoever on...
that's one of the things, but it's like, well, this is all fine and fun, but sometimes even in Alabama, we can take this stuff too far.
Very much.
How many fights break out around the Iron Bowl?
It is so true, yes. And you will be publicly embarrassed if you are a part of those, because phones are everywhere.
Yes.
And we will see it.
Yes. And you're forced to pick a tribe.
That's right. Yeah. I know, that's the first thing people do when they move here. If they're new, they'll say, well, who are you for?
Yeah.
And they'll look at you like, what?
Yeah.
And Alabama, you have to pick Alabama or Auburn. Who are you for?
And so we have a guy, a family who has started attending our church, and so whenever this gets brought up, he does have opinions on it, but he gets in the habit of saying the Detroit Red Wings.
The who?
Hockey. He loves hockey.
Bless him.
Yes.
Bless his heart.
Yes.
Here we go.
Bless his heart.
We are back.
We've got it back.
But no, I appreciate that, and that it's funny how often we find ourselves returning to football, especially the Alabama-Auburn rivalry, as our silly example. And yet, how you act in those silly situations really are going to speak to and silly and quote unquote not serious situations. Because as much as I love it, it is just a game. It's a game played by 18 to, we'll say, 25-year-olds now.
Because
what
happened?
I heard their 25-year-old knees doing that. I mean,
that is one thing I have not thought.
Question.
That's an excellent question.
Great question.
because in sports are like dog years.
I mean,
Yes.
listen, that is the next best interview question. Some media person needs to pick that up right now. How are your 25-year-old knees doing?
Go ask Diego from Vandy. How are those knees holding up?
Like, what's going on, bud?
Yes.
But that's it's all fun, but it kind of, it's like the parable of the talents. I mean, how you act in these situations are going to determine how you act in the bigger situations. I just recently had a quote from Fred Craddock that I'm not going to be able to get properly right. Fred Craddock, who's like the dean of United Methodist preaching in a lot of ways. Most of us are not going to be called to write a book or meet with a monarch or run for senator or anything like that, but we are going to be asked to teach Sunday school, to take a neighbor a meal, to do these things. And how you do those little things, quote unquote little things, well, show that you're going to do the other things well.
Yeah,
the little things with great love.
Yeah.
Put perfectly.
Y'all, this has been a heavier episode. It's been fun, but I hope again our goal in all of this is not to be prescriptive. That hey, you will learn new ways of behavior necessarily. What we're hoping is you'll go to these social principles, that you'll read them, and you'll open a conversation with them and yourself. That's because that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be the start of the conversation. And then, seek out someone else. We'd love it if you'd seek out, one of us, for those, maybe you're not part of, our local group here, but still reach out to us, reach out to a pastor or a trusted friend to talk about some of these things. Because it does make me come back to, part of it, part of social holiness means we do it together.
Yeah.
None of these issues are going to be something we solve on our own.
Yep.
We've got to do it in community. That's part of why I think it was so important for Brooke and I to do this, bringing in some of our friends, because y'all have different perspectives than we do. Y'all have different histories than we do. We need to learn from y'all, and y'all need to learn from us, and together we're going to make it better somehow.
We're better together, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. So, we're going to wrap up this episode, and I'm going to plug my own shtick. How about that?
Please plug. Plug right away.
I'm going to plug away. Please, if you want to hear more, find us on all the social media places. You can find us in our podcast app. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us or watch us. You can see our pretty faces on YouTube.
And if you're having trouble finding us, or maybe you just haven't found the right app, ask your kids, your nieces, your nephews. They know about things that I guarantee you we don't know.
They sure enough do. They sure enough do.
If you've enjoyed this, feel free to give us a like, drop a comment if you have a question, or if you want our thoughts or something. If you really enjoyed this, share it with someone who you think will enjoy this as well. Marion, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. We've really enjoyed it.
Yes, very much so.
Y'all, this has been fun. We will continue on. We're going to talk about possibly the most dangerous one of these, the political community. How do we, as Christians and as in particular United Methodist, live in this political world that we have? That's going to be a fun conversation. I hope you'll tune in for it.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.